Good morning, everybody. Hey, yeah, it is bright and early. You can hear the birds chirping in the background, symbolizing the brand new day, right? Actually, that's not on my end, but actually, it's relaxing. I actually like that sound. But anyways, yeah, I'm up bright and early. Actually, I didn't even sleep last night. I'll go to bed later on today. But I got in touch with somebody that I know from Facebook who wrote a blog, and I thought about actually doing a blog on his blog. I was going to do a little maybe a critique or analysis, I guess. But I have I have a certification problem with the site right now. It's just because it's expired yesterday, so you have to do another SSL certification, and my webmaster guy will do all that. So I thought it'd be even cooler if I got the actual person who wrote the blog on and had a discussion with him for about an hour. So I've got Larry S. Rhodes on. I don't know if you guys know him or not, but he's from Freethought Radio Blog. Is that the name of the radio show you do?
Digital Freethought Radio Hour.
Digital Freethought Radio Hour, and that's out of Knoxville, Tennessee, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so you do an atheist-type radio podcast show.
Yeah, but it literally does go out on the FM airways on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock for about an hour, which I feel is a pretty good coup that we can actually get atheist talk radio in the middle of the Bible Belt.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're recording on Sunday mornings and
Knoxville, yeah.
Broadcast it. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so they allow that? They allow that to go over the airwaves? That's impressive,
well,
actually.
the radio station that I'm working for or working with is a little different than usual. They don't pay you. You pay DJ dues, and you're part of a kind of a community. And the community supports the radio station. And the dues are like $20 a month. And anybody who wants to be a DJ can. And they approached me when I was sitting out downtown at an Ask an Atheist booth, which I do. And came up to me and said, "Would you like to do a radio show?" I said, "Sure." And they told me the details, and I jumped on it. Been doing it for about 3.5 years now.
That's pretty awesome, actually. I don't have the wherewithal to do a radio program. I was supposed to do something with Reasons to Believe with Dr. Fuzz Rana this month, but it's been postponed a little bit, obviously because nobody's going out anywhere. So we're looking at either doing other plans, maybe from remotes. But they were designing a set, and I was supposed to actually do in studio stuff. But everybody's in the same boat right now.
This is a low powered station.
What is it, 1,000 watt? How many watt?
100 watt.
100 watt. Oh, that's really low power.
It reaches all of downtown Knoxville. So
I've had a CB that had higher wattage.
Especially during a working day. What?
Well, CB is normally limited to 5 watts, but I had a Palomar Linear Elite that got to 250 foot warmer. Not that I would use that because that's illegal, but I'm just saying I had one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Cool.
All right, so let's dive into this. So I don't know if you're following the video. I have it on the you know what you wrote. I have it on the feed so the people on the outside can actually follow along with us. So this is from the Digital Freethought blog, and I had like I said, I had a couple questions on it as far as your uses of terminology, because I was extremely confused by a lot of this. I don't know if you know my background. You know that I like epistemology, and I do a lot with atheism and also with theist. I mean, my jam is critical thinking. So, okay, so you have a diagram here, right? And you have a 4-quadrant, well, almost like a multi-axle approach, right? So you have Okay, so forgetting about the Gnostic Atheist and the Gnostic Theist for a second. We'll put those to the side. I'm willing to grant a juxtaposition of epistemological term with an ontological term. Arguendo. I mean, it's not that critical when you say a Gnostic atheist is somebody who claims to know that God does not exist, right? Okay, that's how you're using it, right?
No, I'm not. A Gnostic atheist would claim knowledge of a God. Now, you could say that he's claiming that God exists, but really all it does is claim. He's claiming that he has knowledge that a God exists. In other words, God has spoken to him. In the case of a Gnostic theist, you have people saying, God has spoken to me. I know he's real. So that would be a Gnostic theist. He's claiming knowledge, but he could also turn around and say, God is real. Then in that case, he's claiming, that gods are real.
Well, that's what a knowledge claim would be.
Or have knowledge of them.
Right? I mean, if somebody says, I know the proposition is true, they're making an ontological claim that is the state of affairs, that proposition is true. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll go to quadrant. That's fine. We'll do a quadrant by quadrant. So, because I have a problem with the Gnostic atheist position too. So,
I do too.
So, well, I mean, I have a problem with the usage of the terminology, and the reason being is, let's do an internal critique. Let's use it from the way I assume you use the term atheism to mean anybody who doesn't believe in God, right?
Right. Atheism is a belief claim or a lack of a belief claim. Yeah.
That's how you use it, right? I mean, that's not how I use it, but that's how you use it.
That's how I use it.
Okay. So let's assume that is a lack of belief claim. Let's say it is a position of not believing. Mm-hmm. Knowledge is a subset of belief, right? So if you claim to know that God exists, you also believe that God exists, right? For a Gnostic Atheist?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So we're on the same page. So, but in that's the case, so in that case, atheism has to be in the positive case, right?
Okay. Well, here's the thing. I can claim that I don't believe, and nobody can disprove that because I am the world's foremost authority in what Larry Rhodes believes. Okay, so I'm claiming belief or non-belief. I'm claiming that I don't believe. So, and I like I say, I'm the one who knows. I'm not claiming that gods aren't real.
Right.
I have no knowledge of gods at all. Period.
But if you don't
make a claim like that, if I say gods don't exist, I'm making a claim, and I bear the burden of proof.
But if you don't believe God exists, it's axiomatic. It literally is entailing that you do not have a knowledge claim, right? So if you have just atheist, somebody who says I'm atheist, and you're
no knowledge. I have no knowledge, right? I'm making a claim that I have no knowledge.
So what's the difference between?
I'm not making a.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, what's the difference between?
No, I was going to let you finish.
Okay. What's the difference between a Gnostic atheist and just an atheist, then, from your perspective?
Well, a Gnostic atheist would claim knowledge that there is no God. And I don't see how they could do that. Now, they could do it for a specific God, like the God of Christianity. It's supposed to be omniscient, omnipotent, and everywhere. What is that?
Omnipresent, yeah.
Yeah, and all loving. A God like that can't exist if there's evil in the world.
Right, that's logical problem.
You can logically impossible. So I can claim a Gnostic position on that, saying I know through the laws of logic that a God like that doesn't exist because evil exists.
Right, that's a standard logic. I mean,
you can't say that for all gods because we don't know about all gods. I mean, that's an agnostic position.
Yeah, but
you'd have to. I don't know, and I don't say that there are no gods.
Yeah, but okay, and I get that. I don't think maybe I'm not putting it forth right. If you're using atheism in the weak case, okay, if you're using atheism as merely someone who doesn't believe, that entails you do not know, right? I mean, it's by logical entailment. There could be no other way, because if you don't have a belief, you can't modify it with some kind of epistemic modifier, right? So all atheists,
right? Okay.
From your again, we're doing an internal critique. For all atheists that do not believe in gods, none of them can claim they know, right? Because you'd have to have a belief first, then you would have to have the knowledge position as a modifier, right?
Yeah, I think that we are all agnostic atheists.
No, not agnostic. We're in the first quadrant. Well, actually, technically in the second quadrant, if you do it mathematically, right? Because the first quadrant is the upper right.
So we're all Gnostic atheists?
Well, I have no idea what you are, but I'm saying the terminology you're using is confusing, because if you're using atheism the way you are, as somebody who does not believe in God, that is also a Gnostic atheist in some ways, because anybody who says, I do not believe, right, they can't make a knowledge claim out of it, right? There's no possible way you can make a knowledge claim.
Well, they can make a lack of knowledge claim. They can say, I don't have knowledge.
Right, but you're using it we're talking about Gnostic atheist, right? So Gnostic atheist in the week.
I'm saying agnostic means lack of knowledge, means I can't. Agnostics claim, when they're talking about deism or gods, that they have no knowledge of God. So they're agnostic. Can I ask where you get that from? No knowledge. They have.
Do you mind?
Yeah, look up root word of a.
No. I know the term gnosis, but I mean the term agnosticism came from Thomas.
It's based on knowledge. Agnostic means no knowledge.
Where do you actually get that from? Besides the etymology, is the root word gnosis. But when Thomas Stanley Huxley, when he came up with the coin of the word Gnosticism, it meant to be hidden knowledge. That's why he used gnosis. It had nothing to do with knowledge of gods. He was saying that the people of his time were similar to the Gnostics, and they were having claims that they couldn't support, whether it be belief or knowledge, and he was claiming it as hidden knowledge. So the word itself doesn't mean anything to do with knowledge from an ontological point of view, right?
Okay. Well, let me ask you this then. With your knowledge of the epistemological roots of all of this and the historical foundations, what position do you think that atheists should take on this?
Well, that's prescriptive.
Gnostic or agnostic.
Yeah, that's prescriptive. I deal with the logic, right? I deal with the baggage.
No, I mean, you're getting somewhere. You're going somewhere.
Yeah.
With this, aren't you?
So well, I mean, like I said, how they should use things if they want to be in line with the philosophy, that's a completely different question. But I want to.
Well, how should we use it if we want to be in line with
philosophy?
Okay.
Well, agnosticism would be the psychological position of being agnostic on the proposition. So if the proposition is the sky is blue, an agnostic would say, I neither believe the sky is blue, nor do I believe the sky is not blue.
No. You have jumped from Gnosticism to theism. You jumped from knowledge to belief.
No. Agnosticism is a belief position. So let me qualify this.
Okay.
Agnosticism is a second order.
That may be where we
Go ahead.
diverge. Go ahead.
So agnosticism is a second order belief position. Okay, so you're dealing with two different domains. You're dealing with the epistemological domain and the ontological domain. Ontological domain is the existence of God, right? God exists or he doesn't exist.
The ontologic. Right? Oh, yeah. Okay.
If you're talking about strictly ontology, you're not talking about knowledge, because there's three ways really agnosticism has been used in the literature. One is a normative epistemic principle, which was Huxley's, right? It was very similar to scientific methodology, and basically logical positivism, but that's not the way the word is frequently used at all any longer. The only place you really find it used that way is Draper's work on Stanford Encyclopedia. Towards the end, he talks about it. The other way the word is used as what's called an epistemological proposition, which is the knowability of gods, right? But again, that deals with an epistemological approach. But the ontological, the way we use the word in philosophy, is if God exists or not. If you say, I'm agnostic on the proposition of God existing, that means you have no position either way, right? It has nothing to do with knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how it would be in line with.
Tell you.
Yes. Go ahead.
It doesn't tell you. If I say to you, you say, where do you stand on the God question? I say I'm an agnostic. It tells you what? That you
suspend
don't
judgment.
know that there's gods. I can't know.
No.
I suspend judgment.
Right.
Does it tell you what I believe?
Yes, you believe
that question.
Yes, it is a second order belief. You tell somebody that you believe that you're unable to answer the question, so you suspend judgment.
No, if I say I'm an agnostic,
right?
If I say I'm an agnostic, what has it told you about my beliefs?
That you have the belief that you cannot properly answer the question, right? You cannot evaluate the proposition, so you suspend judgment on it. It is a second order belief.
No, because there are people who do not believe. I mean, simply do not believe. And you're saying that they cannot not believe.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Because they suspend judgment. Yes, you are. You're saying, I have to suspend judgment, and I cannot tell you whether I believe or not because I said I'm an agnostic.
Well, no, you don't believe.
If you're agnostic, no belief position.
If you are an agnostic on the proposition, you do not believe, but you don't believe P and you don't believe not P. You have unbelief, okay? Unbelief is the disposition.
So, according to you, there's no such thing. According to you, there is no such thing as an agnostic theist.
Well, we'll get into we're still in the first quarter here, but you asked you asked me a pertinent question: how you use it in philosophy. In the philosophical terms, that agnostic is somebody who just doesn't say the proposition is true or false. Okay.
Okay.
So, if I say I'm agnostic on the God claim, I don't believe that gods exist, and I don't believe that gods don't exist. Right. So you have no belief either way.
But I know many people who say that, I believe in God, but I don't know he's real or not. I'm an agnostic on the question of God.
I get that, but why do you keep bringing up knowledge?
Knowledge versus belief.
But here's the problem I have with your blog, and this is what I was trying to say. You're switching between ontology and epistemology. You're switching from one domain to a different domain. In the domain of ontology, just God existing.
Ontology is made up of words. Epistemology is how we arrive at those words and what those words mean.
No, that's etymology.
Okay, etymology, you're correct. Yeah. But epistemology is what we use to learn how we get the knowledge of those words. I mean, it's part of it.
Well, epistemology is the study of knowledge and beliefs, right?
I think we're really splitting hairs, and I don't feel that it's that critical. I think that if we do this, we're splitting agnostics, atheists, anybody who has a belief claim into separate camps. There are labels. On my blog, I try to explain that you can tell somebody that you're agnostic, but that doesn't convey whether you believe in God or not.
Yeah,
because there are people in
no,
both
it does.
camps.
It absolutely does. Agnostics do not believe in God. They're a non-theist. All agnostics in ontology are non-believers. They do not believe in God exists. They don't believe God exists, nor do they believe God does not exist.
I know some believers who would take exception to your.
But you asked how it is normative in
position.
philosophy, right? I'm explaining in philosophical terms. People can use stipulated terms all the time.
Okay. Not everybody is up to date on philosophy,
Correct.
so they use the terms wrong. So
well, not right or
let's
wrong. No,
on.
just different, right? It's not right or wrong.
Well,
but,
okay. All right.
All right.
Can we move to a different topic?
So,
because I think we could be here all day, and we've only got an hour.
Yeah, I know. So let me move on a little bit on this. So you have the one that I find the weirdest is the agnostic atheist position, because I wrote a blog and I have 12 different ways that can be interpreted. But I noticed on you say does not believe in God, but does not claim to know this as a fact. I have no reference that I've ever seen that described that way. And even in my blog, I gave 12 different possible interpretations of agnostic atheist. Where did you come up with this definition from?
Generally from the atheist experience, but it resonated with me, and I looked up the words, and I happen to agree with them. Okay.
On the agnostic theist, you say believes in God, but does not claim to know this as a fact. And you say agnostic atheist does not believe in God, but does not claim to know as a fact. Correct?
Claim knowledge, yes.
There's a problem in your usage here, even logically, whatever definitions you use, merely for the fact that a theist is a positive position. I think you do agree with that, right? Somebody who believes God does not, or somebody who believes God exists is a theist, right?
Well, somebody who believes God exists, yes, is a theist.
Okay.
And someone who doesn't is an atheist.
Okay.
Or lacks the belief.
So why are you using theist in the positive case, but atheist in the negative case, when the terms are agnostic atheist and agnostic theist? Shouldn't it be to have what's called mirroring or symmetry? Agnostic theist would be, again, eternal critique. Would be believes in God but does not know this as a fact.
I just got through saying that I don't consider this a critical juncture. I mean, we've wasted or spent at least 10 minutes on this, 15. We have an hour show. I would like to move on to something else.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I don't think we're ever going to reach an agreement on it.
Can I wrap it up for 10 seconds on this particular part, then we move on to the live chat?
Absolutely.
Because I want people to recognize that agnostic theist, if that's the positive case where it is the belief that God does not exist, then by mirroring that, atheism would have to be the positive case. So agnostic atheist mirroring would be somebody who believes there's no gods, but doesn't claim it as knowledge, right? Just like a theist claims there is a God, but doesn't claim it as knowledge. There's a symmetry breakage using this type of multi-axial approach. This is why you never find it in any philosophy book. You'll never find this in any paper because it's very stipulative, very imprecise, and it's what the atheist experience uses, which is they're allowed to, but I wanted to show the problems of it. All right, so moving on to your blog, you say theism. You talk about Gnosticism doesn't address beliefs; it addresses knowledge, right?
Are we still on the subject?
Well, I'm moving down further.
Okay.
So it says Gnosticism. It doesn't.
We're spending the entire hour on atheism versus agnosticism and theism. Is that correct?
Well, I'm just going through your blog. Like I said, I was going to write a blog on your blog. So
I have one. That's one article of 75 articles I've got on there, and that was like one of the first ones I've written. Have you not read any of the others?
Or
listened to my radio show?
I've read this one.
Read my book.
Well, I've read this one, and there's huge epistemic issues with it, and I'm showing some issues maybe you might want to look at, so maybe you might want to correct them or at least address them. That's why I'm saying the blog has conceptual errors, I think, right? Because you say things like the Gnosticism.
I'm happy with my blog page.
Okay.
Let's just say that words have usages, and usages are shared by people. Let's say that I'm trying to get the knowledge of these particular words out, and I would like to. I think that if we use them the way I use them on the page, then they will serve a function in our society without somebody having to have a philosophical degree to understand all the nuances.
All right, so let me ask you two questions on that. One, these are your private language argument then. I mean, this is the usage that you use that's privated to you. I mean, it's not, you recognize this is
think
not
it's better,
found anywhere else,
I think
right?
it's better than what the current common usage of the words are. Yes.
Okay. So you're positing these, that this is how you think they should be used rather than how they normatively are used.
Have it your way.
Okay. So let's look at some of the uses you have, because you have hard atheist, people who claim that they know that a God does not exist and can prove it through logical argument. Now, normally you do recognize that normally a hard atheist is somebody who just believes that gods don't exist, right? That's normative, right?
Yeah. Again, we're talking belief, not knowledge.
Correct.
Of course, that's how I'm using it, and that's how I've always used it.
Where did you come up with prove it through logical argument, if I can ask?
Through logical arguments like the one I just did. They can say that if omniscient, all-loving, all-powerful God lives in this universe and created this universe, he can't exist if evil exists. That's a logical argument. Gnostic Atheist may come down and say, I'm hard on this position. God cannot exist. God doesn't exist because of that particular position, that argument.
Right, but I think you may be missing my point. The term you're using is hard atheist, and you're using it atypically, right? You're using it. You made up a definition that nobody else uses. Okay, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay,
which is fine. You can do that.
Let's just get to it. You're using it. Okay, I'm using it incorrectly.
No, it's not.
You're
again,
using it correctly.
It's not a matter of incorrect or correct. You can have a stipulative definition. You can.
No, I think that's what we're doing.
There is no correct or incorrect.
That's the whole point of where we're going.
Words are polysemous, right? So at least these especially are words. Atheist is polysemous. I have like 8 different usages for atheism. But you have a stipulative definition, and you're saying that this is what it is, right? I don't read on here. You're saying this is the way I think these words should be used. You're saying this is what this is.
I'll put that on there. How's that?
Well, again, I mean, your blog, but why would a hard atheist say they can prove it through logical argumentation? The reason I have a problem with this is because I know a lot of hard atheists.
A lot of people say things that may not be logically true and may not be able to do it. Like some people say that they can prove that the world is flat. A lot of people say lots of things. A hard atheist would say that he could prove that there's no God.
I've never met one that
arguments.
says that. I know a lot of hard atheists. Most of my audience that are atheists are hard atheists, which is just atheist in philosophy, right? They're just somebody who believes that God doesn't exist.
You've never met one. Fine.
Haven't met what? Somebody that says they can prove it? I've never met somebody who said they can prove there's no gods. Well, I mean, I should rescind that. I've had people years ago say they could prove there are no gods, but then they give the most ridiculous arguments in the world, right? And they don't even know what logical proof would be.
I'm not saying they give valid arguments or logical arguments, but they say they can.
I think that's very far and few in between. Like I said, I don't think I have a single atheist that watches this that would say they can prove it through logical argument. Not one. If they did, I'll invite them on and they can give it a shot. But all right, so moving on from there, soft atheists claim they do not know. And indeed can't know, but can't prove it, but don't believe in a God just the same, which seems superfluous to me. I mean, if you don't believe that gods exist, you clearly can't know it, and you clearly can't prove it. I mean, that's pretty superfluous. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. Hard theists claim that they know that gods do not exist and can prove it through logical argument.
Hard theists claim they know that gods do exist.
But you say can prove it through logical argument. Again, I don't think I know any theist. And I know, I mean, I'm working with Dr. Fuzz Rana, Dr. Kenny Rhodes, Dr. Hugh Ross. I mean, I know a lot of theists, educated theists. I don't think any of them have ever told me they can prove it through logical argument.
They can prove that gods exist through the ontological, the argument through design, the argument through creation, the argument through where we came from, or look at the trees. There's all kinds of arguments that they use that don't hold water, but they claim that they use those arguments to prove that God exists.
I don't think they do, honestly. What I think they do is...
Okay, then fine.
Well, hear me out.
I mean, you're just going to vouchsafe everything I said on the page, and you're going to vouchsafe everything that I'm saying now, just simply, no, it doesn't.
Well, I'm asking
what kind of conversation are we having?
One about your blog. I'm critiquing your blog like I said I was going to do.
You're not critiquing it. You're just basically saying, no, it doesn't. I don't know anybody who does this. That doesn't work. This doesn't work. All of this is, and you're trying, apparently, just to divide all of these concepts up so that they are unusable. Well, I don't know where you're wanting to go with this.
Well, because when you make certain claims, like, for example, you say a hard theist says they can prove it through logical argumentation. Can you can you when you say this, they use like
the whole
hang on.
The whole argument from ID, intelligent design, is theoretically logical arguments to prove the existence of God, and they claim that they can do that and prove God exists.
I don't find that to be mostly the case.
No,
though.
they don't say that.
What I think they do. Well, you might have found some, and they surely might exist. But I think what I find mostly is that they say, look, these are not foolproof that God exists. I mean, you might have the far evangelist, right? The far extreme, maybe, but most of them say these are probabilistic arguments, right? They say, look, the Aquinas' 5 ways is not bulletproof, right? But you see Thomas using Aquinas' 5 ways, argue from motion, or, they say, well, these are what we would posit for evidence for God, but they don't say that they're logical proofs that we're just foolproof. I don't think I've seen any rational or educated theists posit anything like that, right?
So when they put forward an argument proving they're God, they also have to say it's foolproof. Is that part of your argument?
A proof has to be valid and sound, right? I mean,
no. What I'm saying is, you just got through saying that they use those arguments. Sure, they do, but they're not saying they're foolproof. So I'm saying they have to say they're foolproof. Does that have to be part of the equation?
Well,
they have to make that claim.
They recognize. Okay, so there's 3 parts of an argument, right? There's validity, soundness, and there's if they're convincing, right? For a deductive argument, for an inductive argument.
Okay, yes,
cogency.
I understand all that.
Okay,
but are you saying that there are people that never put out invalid arguments? These people are putting out invalid arguments. ID is an invalid argument.
Do you think the Kalam is an invalid argument?
But people do claim that they can prove God through argumentation and logic. That's all my blog said.
Do you think that the Kalam is invalid?
Definitely.
Well,
to prove the Christian God. Yeah,
no. Okay, so this is where I get confused. Okay, because the Kalam
again. Okay, instead of acknowledging my point, you just simply move to a different battlefield.
No, I'm still talking about the Kalam.
Did you acknowledge my point?
That the Kalam is invalid?
Yes.
No, the Kalam is valid.
About ID just a minute ago.
ID is not an argument. ID is an argument is a well structured thing like a syllogism, right? I'm talking about logical argument.
Under your definitions of all of this, I can't say anything because you're going to say no. That what I just said is not structurally sound. No, that's an argument. Is not philosophically defined that way.
Okay, so let me ask it again.
I mean, I appeal to the audience.
Okay.
Have you ever met a Christian or a pastor or a preacher or somebody who says that they can prove the existence of God through logic and valid argument, even though they put out invalid arguments?
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see that doesn't happen.
All it said was that there are people out there who say they can do that, and they're hard theists.
Okay, so let me ask this one more time, because again, the question. I don't think you're understanding the question. I don't mean it to be derogatory here. I'm honestly not. But you said the Kalam is invalid, and there's a problem with that because it isn't invalid. It is a valid argument. Right.
Give me the argument.
Kalam goes basically everything that has a beginning has a cause. The universe had a beginning, therefore the universe had a cause.
That is invalid.
Why is that invalid? That's modus ponens. That's a proper rule of inference.
The Kalam argument in its original form was everything has a cause. That's what it was originally put forward. Christians and other religious people, when they bring it forward or used to bring it forward, people would say, well, what about God? And after years of this, they finally backed up and said, okay, everything that has a beginning everything that begins has to have a beginning or a cause. So they have changed it simply because of that.
But Larry, I think you have
reputation of the atheist.
Larry,
and what's funny to me is you picked up the Christian part of it.
No, this is Larry, I think you have a conceptual error here. This has nothing to do with Christianity. This is a logical conceptual error you have. And
okay,
when you're talking about,
deism,
hang on, no, it has nothing to do with deism. Let me explain this to you because you're putting out a blog and you're doing free thought and you're telling people misinformation. This is what makes it very difficult for atheists and other people when you put out misinformation about a subject that that you seem to be not too hip on. So let me explain to you this, and then we could go on to the next thing.
Explain it to me,
okay,
please.
The Kalam is a logical, valid argument. Okay, the reason it's a logically valid argument because it's modus ponens, which is a valid rule of inference. P implies Q. P, therefore Q. Okay? If I say to you, If the moon is made of green cheese,
we don't.
let me finish.
Okay,
If the moon
we
is,
don't.
let me
Go
finish.
ahead.
If the moon is made of green cheese, then I am a moose. The moon is made of green cheese, therefore I am a moose, is a logically valid deductive argument. Okay? Now, if the premise is...
You think so?
Well, it's
One
logic.
doesn't
It's
follow
logic
the other.
101, man. This
No,
is basic...
it's not. No.
Okay,
No.
well, Larry, let me tell you.
Your logical premises have to follow, and they have to build on each other. The moon being green cheese does not have anything
I
to do with
assure you that
second
you're incorrect
premise.
on this. I mean, I'm not
Okay.
trying to be demeaning.
All right.
This is
Why
basic
don't
fundamental
we
logic
just-
101. Okay, because this is a rule of inference called modus ponens. You might want to look it up. If it is P implies Q, and P therefore Q, then it has to be deductively valid. If the premises are not true, then it's not sound. Sound means the premises are true and it's deductively valid. So that syllogism I gave, let me see that modus ponens I just gave you is deductively valid, but it's not sound because the premises are not true. This is where a conceptual error that you have, right?
All right.
So it's valid but not sound. This
it.
is what I'm trying to say. You use these terms, and like you did in your blog, and you're using these terms so atypically that nothing makes sense. Because if you tell a theist, hey, that's invalid, they're going to go, what are you talking about? It's logic. And they're going to say, look, this atheist, he doesn't know basic logic, right? Valid goes with structure, right? It goes with the form of the argument. It has nothing to do with the premises are true or not. It just means that the structure is sound, that if it is the case that the premises are true, the conclusion must follow by necessity.
Well, where does the ontological argument fall down in...
Which one? There's a whole bunch of them.
Well, the one you use. Let's try that one.
Well, I mean, there's
everything with a beginning has to have a cause.
Therefore,
God.
The problem with that particular argument is that it relies on A theory of time. I think most people go for B theory of time. But did you watch Dr. Alec Mouspass and William Lane Craig talk about this particular argument the other day? He was talking about modal fallacy, and they're talking about future tense versus future perfect tense. It's a very complicated argument. It took me 3 days to actually write a blog on this particular argument. So I'm not going to get into the nuance of it. I think the premises are not true, but I think it's contingent upon which theory of time that you follow. I mean, do you tend to follow the A theory or B theory of time? Which one do you tend to?
Well, let's go back to atheism and theism. How do you use them, and how do you think we should use them in conversation? Because let's assume that the person you're talking to doesn't have a degree in philosophy and doesn't understand the ontological ontology
I
behind them.
don't know why it needs a degree in philosophy. We talk about biology all the time, right? I mean, when we talk to young Earth creationists, we talked about biology. We explained to them, hey, look,
you're not answering my question, though.
Well, I'm getting there. Having a degree has nothing to do with anything, right? I mean, if you're literate on a topic and you talk to a young Earth creationist, I've converted many young Earth creationists out of young Earth creationists, right? It isn't because I've explained to them what it is in biology. I don't have to have a biological degree to do that. So how should these words are normally used? Atheism is the belief that God does not exist, and the reason why in philosophy that's normatively held is it eliminates the potentiality for any kind of category error or absurdities or contradictions, anything like that. So
I'm really personally, I'm really okay with that.
You're okay with that contradictions?
I think that the definition of atheism is that people, as someone who doesn't believe in God, but you can also, like me, I do believe that there are no gods. Now, however, I do not claim that there are no gods.
Well, actually, let me explain to you a little bit of epistemology. That is a claim, and let me explain to you why.
It's a claim about my belief.
Well, hang on. This is epistemology here, like 101. So this is something that's objective. You can go read about these things. You're using these terms, and then you're just saying, well, it's not the case. A belief is a supporting of a proposition. That's meaning that the propositional content is the case. You're claiming that ontologically it is the case that the proposition is true. Now, there are ways of doing it like a self-assessment, or it's called an autobiographical, which means that I'm just telling you my belief. However, you're still supporting that is the way the current state of affairs of the universe are. So beliefs are dispositions toward a propositional content, claiming that propositional content is true. So beliefs technically are not claims directly, but beliefs are dispositions about claims. So when you say that I believe P is true, you're making a claim that is the case.
About a claim.
Right?
I have a position about a claim. Okay, fine.
Okay, sure.
The claim is there are gods. My position is I don't believe it.
But you said you don't. You said you believe there are none.
You just said just a minute ago that's an invalid position.
What is?
Right. atheism. I mean, the word atheism, as we define it. We cannot use the word atheism because it's a position on the claim, and therefore we need to be able to support the position on the claim and have evidence for it or something.
Well, it doesn't matter which way you use it. If you use atheism,
no, it does matter.
Hang on.
Here's the thing:
if you use
you have just defined the word out of existence.
No, listen to me very
You're
carefully.
saying we cannot use the word.
If you use atheism in the weak cases,
because
you
it's
do.
invalid.
Right? You're just saying that you don't believe. Okay, this is called a dichotomy. You have belief and don't believe, right? So you believe the proposition or you do not believe the proposition, right? Okay. So if you don't believe the proposition, that's still an attitude toward the proposition. Either one of them have a burden of proof. It doesn't matter whether you say I believe or I don't believe.
I disagray.
Okay, that's fine. You can disagree, but in epistemology, both of them have a burden of proof. You can read Dr. Martin, you could read Dr. Malik, you can read.
I don't care.
Okay,
I don't care.
But do you recognize that in the field of epistemology, you want to have a rational position, right? You want to be able to say, I do not believe, and this is why I don't believe. If not, you're not rational.
Yeah, I can do that. I can say that. I don't believe, because the reason I don't believe is I have seen no evidence for the existence of a God.
Okay.
Done.
But do you agree, though? Okay, because of that, do you agree that if you don't believe, that requires a burden of proof because you need to justify to be rational, right? You said you can do it, so what's the big deal?
I just did.
Right.
I just justified it.
Okay, that's fine. That's your justification.
The rational position, the justification is I see no proof, no evidence.
So you agree, though, even an atheism in the weak case requires a burden of proof then?
No, I don't.
Then you don't have a rational position.
A belief statement simply describes your belief position. That's it. I am the world's most leading authority on what I believe. Now, whatever the position is underneath it doesn't matter because I'm expressing to you mano a mano. I'm giving you my position, and you don't have the authority to question that I'm telling you something that is wrong.
Not my argument.
If I tell you my belief position,
which is irrelevant. It's absolutely irrelevant. It has nothing to do with the fact that.
Yeah, but you're saying that I have to have a burden of proof
to be rational.
Just to tell you.
No, listen, Larry, you're strawmanning me. You have to have a burden of proof to be rational, right? If you want to have a rational position, it requires justification. That goes back to Sextus Empiricus, back to the 2nd century AD.
To myself.
No, listen. Okay? But I get that. Whether it's to yourself or to somebody else, it doesn't matter. You still have a burden of proof to yourself to be rational, right? You need to justify it to yourself. Do you agree with that?
In a way. Okay. I have to be able to look myself in the mirror and say, this is why I don't believe it. Sure. But when I express to you that I don't believe, you can't turn around to say you have a burden of proof to show me why what you don't believe is true.
Correct. Yeah, that's called the burden of persuasion is what it actually is, right? I mean,
yeah, but a burden. Go ahead.
If I say
I can persuade you, yeah.
Yeah, if I say I believe the sky is blue, right, and I just say, look, I'm just giving you a self-assessment about my belief. You're right. I have no onus to explain to you why I believe the sky is blue. But if I want to convince you that the sky is blue, right, and I'm explaining to you why the sky is blue, then I have what's called a burden of persuasion. There's different forms of burden of proof. There's burden of persuasion and burden of production. In this case, the burden of persuasion means that in order to convince you, right, because of the speech act of me claiming that I believe this is the case, right, it's part of speech act theory, I then have an onus to explain to you, right, to be rational. But that's only if I'm not doing it as a self-assessment.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we're on the same page. Okay. So you asked before though why we in philosophy they use atheism in the positive case. One of the things that happens.
No. Okay. There's two things here. Positive. If I say I'm a positive atheist, then I sometimes. I mean, the way I understand it, and you'll probably tell me I'm wrong because of epistemology or word origins, or even usage, really, for that matter. But a positive atheist, and the way I use it on the blog, is someone who says, I'm sure there's no God, I'm a Gnostic atheist, and I can support that through reasoned argument. However, I've watched your other videos, and you come down on the atheist experience out of Austin, Texas, for using the word positive. But they don't use it that way.
Right, correct. They use it as happy.
They use it as
friendly,
being a positive force in the world.
Yeah, they make that very clear. I understand that. I know how they use it. It's confusing, but I understand that
distinction.
Yeah, no, I'm well aware of how they use it. Yes, but Okay, so going back to my point, though, if you're using atheism in the negative case, right, which is called negative atheism, and first of all, positive atheism, I don't know there's nowhere does it say it requires surety. This is something that you came up with.
I don't think that I've used that on my blog. Why are we bringing that up?
Well, you have hard atheist, which is the same thing.
I have hard and soft atheist. I don't have a positive and negative atheist.
Okay, well, typically speaking, hard atheism, these are synonymous. Okay, hard atheism.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, hard atheism, explicit atheism, and positive atheism are all the same coinage, right? The only difference is that explicit atheism was coined by George Smith when he wrote a book in 1974 called A Case Against God. But other than that, it's very similar to, it's a horrible book. It's one of the, he didn't do a good job on that book.
It's hard to get through, that's for sure.
Yeah. I read Fighting God by David Silverman, and at least it's easier to get through. I mean, I disagree with him on one of his points, but I happen to get along with David very well. I mean, it's really strange. We have such a vastly different positions, and yet we happen to get along very well. I don't know why. But anyways, we got a super chat real quick. Helios, $10. If you hold the position that atheism requires no burden of proof, then you must also hold that the position of theism holds no burden of proof to be logically consistent. Yes, and that's part of my argument. Well, hang on. Let me address it real quick. There's an argument to be had that if you hold theism to be the positive case, right? If it is the case that God does not exist, but then you say, look, anybody who doesn't affirm that proposition, I'm going to call them an atheist. If you do that you definitely have the ability to do that. The argument then becomes, if you don't allow a theist to do the same thing by the negation of the proposition and say, hey, look, you don't affirm there are no gods, ergo you're a weak theist, therefore you're a theist, you're guilty of what's called special pleading. And that's one of the arguments that I particularly have, that nobody's assailed that argument yet, because it's pretty, I think, unassailable, because it is a special pleading argument if you don't allow a theist to do it. Most atheists that understand the logic go, yes, I just bite the bullet on it. I'll let them do it. That's the way you can really assail the argument, is just bite the bullet and say, yes, by using lack of belief as a definition for atheism, I have to recognize a theist would have to say that anybody who doesn't hold the position that gods do not exist is also a theist. Right.
No. Okay. Well, let me ask you this.
Sure.
When a baby, 6 months old, has no belief in God.
Yes. Dr. Graham Oppie calls that position innocent on the proposition, because they have no awareness of the proposition. They haven't tried to evaluate the proposition.
Right. Right. I agree with you. They have no awareness.
Yes. So that makes it innocent.
Yeah. I don't know. There's people that would argue with you on that, but I'm not going to.
Well, again, you asked from a philosophical point of view, right?
You're saying that people who are preaching on the corner, people that are trying to get my money, trying to get me in their pews and telling me I'm going to hell because God told them the wages of sin and all that, are not claiming God knowledge?
Some do that, some don't.
That requires proof.
Well, beliefs require some kind of evidence as well, or at least justification reasons, right? Justificatory conditions.
Reasons, right. But if they're trying to get me to change my mind, they need to give me some kind of evidence, don't they? They have a burden.
If they're trying to change, right?
No.
Yes, of course. But of course, by the same token is, if you just sit there and go, look, I don't believe you, you're not having a discussion with a theist, right? You need to present your own position and why that you hold that position, even if it's a negative case.
No, you're wrong. Well, if I sit here and the guy's talking to me at the table at the dinner and he says, I believe in God, and I say, I don't.
You need to give reasons.
Tell him anything.
If you're having it,
I don't owe him shit.
Okay, well, let me. Again,
I don't owe him.
In philosophy, epistemically speaking, right? If you're in a dialectic synthesis and you're having an interlocutor talk to you about a particular position.
Well, we weren't. He said he believed in God. I said I didn't.
Yeah.
We're not having an interlocutor.
Okay, but if he asked you,
hang on. My position.
But if he asked
he asked me and I'm inclined to explain my position, yes, then we have to have some kind of
and if you
rationale.
And if you don't, he says, okay. Like, for example, if I say, look, I exist, right? I believe that I exist, right? And you say, hey, Steve, I don't believe you. And I say, why don't you believe me? And you say, well, I'm not going to give you a reason. I'm going to think you're irrational, right? I'm just thinking it'd be like, okay, you're an irrational human being.
What I'm saying is I can sit here, be, quote, irrational in your book, tell the guy my belief position, not offer any explanation for it, and still be an atheist, okay?
But do you agree, though, from my perspective, right? If you don't
didn't answer my question, can I do that?
Word it again. Say it again.
He sits there and he tells me he's a theist. He says, I believe in God.
Okay.
And I say, I don't. I'm an atheist.
Okay.
Okay? I don't owe him anything. I don't owe him any explanation. It doesn't change the fact that I am an atheist. I have given him my belief position.
Okay, and that's fine. Yeah, I mean, okay, but what about a debate?
Now, that's different. If I enter into a debate, if I want to change his mind, or if he wants to change my mind, then we have a burden of proof because we're pushing a position on another person.
And even if you don't believe,
we
you have
need
a
to
burden
be
of
able
proof,
to
right?
support it. Huh?
So even if you don't believe, you still have a burden of proof on that in the debate, right?
No. In a debate, yes, because
Okay.
I've got to defend my position.
Right. Okay.
But I don't consider. Okay, now we're talking about burden of proof. What are we proving? My position?
No, burden of proof has nothing to do with proof. Burden of proof is
what am I proving with a burden of proof?
Your burden of proof is your justificatory conditions of why you hold to a particular position. It is
okay. Then that means that theists don't have any burden of proof beyond why they believe.
Correct.
And we should just take their word for it.
That's not what I said.
Why they believe it.
That's not what I said.
No, I'm taking it one step further. I'm going to another logical step here. Should we?
If you find their arguments convincing.
And if okay, fine.
I mean,
so we accept their arguments if they're convincing as proof.
Well, no, again, not proof. Convincing, right? I mean, look, if a theist has arguments, and your mind says, "Look, these sound like these are good arguments to me. Okay. I'm convinced it's the case that God exists." You've accepted their arguments, right? You believe them. You believe the arguments are true, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's done passively, right? Your brain actually is what's called Gnostic involuntarism. Is that your brain actually thinks before you even recognize it, right? So you have beliefs before you even realize you have beliefs. You catch up later on. Right. So if you have been convinced that the arguments are good, you're going to believe it. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So So in a debate,
I believe it, but
when you have a debate, both parties
believe that they believe.
Sure,
now,
of course they do.
If they give me such arguments that let's say that I have no real knowledge of the world or how it came about. I dropped out of school before I even went to high school. I don't have any knowledge of this, and my parents have told me all my life that there's a being out there, and I was skeptical. But then I sit down with a preacher, and he convinces me, and I am convinced from the words that he gives me that there are good logical reasons to believe what he believes, only because I have presupposed the foundation of it growing up from my parents. Now, you would say that he has given me all the proof I need for his claim.
I wouldn't use the word proof.
It would be all I need, but it's not proof. It's not evidence. It's all just stories.
But it's enough to convince you, right? I mean, so it's evidential in that regard.
Okay, so,
right?
So you're saying that all he has to do is give me enough proof, quote, story proof, anecdotal proof, or whatever,
reasons
to be able to convince another person. And therefore, he has met his burden of proof.
Well, no, he doesn't have to convince you.
I just want to be clear.
Sure, he doesn't have to convince you to meet his burden of proof. I know theists that have met their burden of proof to justify their beliefs. I know atheists have met their burden of proof to justify their beliefs. Right? If I know many atheists that are just look, gods are all BS. Gods don't exist. I mean, I'll claim that. I'm stating it. By the way, you use the word fact in here, which I don't understand what you mean by that, because when you say I believe P is true, you're stating it as a fact. That is what it means. I believe P is true is saying it is a fact, or it is true that P is true. What
did I say was a fact?
In your blog,
P or T or something.
No, in your blog.
I can't understand what you're saying.
In your blog, you use the word fact, right? Because you say,
I did.
Yeah, he says, hang on. An agnostic theist, you say, is I believes in God, but does not claim to know this is a fact. Yes, that is when a theist says I believe P is true, they're stating it as a fact. That is what a fact is. It is a truth condition. That's saying that the propositional content is true. So I believe P, right? I believe the proposition which P stands for.
Maybe,
means I believe it to be a fact.
Maybe I'm too scientific in my approach that like a scientist can believe something is true. But unless he's gone through the steps of doing the experiment and gotten results back, he cannot know as a fact.
But we're not talking about knowledge. We're talking about beliefs. This is what I noticed you do throughout your blog. You keep jumping from belief to knowledge. And every time you do
that's why I wrote the whole article was about belief and knowledge.
But they're two different things, right? Knowledge is a subset of belief.
I agree with you. I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay,
but you keep conflating them.
No,
you kept, I mean,
wait,
from
wait,
the very
wait,
first
wait,
sentence
Larry, hey, wait, one sec.
No, the very first.
Wait, you think I'm conflating them? Honestly,
you were saying yes, and not that belief is a subset of knowledge, and you
no. Knowledge is a subset of belief.
You can use them almost interchangeably for the rest of the argument.
No, I've never said anything like that, Larry. What are you talking about?
Rewind it.
I write blogs on knowledge and epistemology. I think I know the difference between knowledge and belief. They're not interchangeable, and it's not belief is a subset of knowledge. You have it backwards. Knowledge is a subset of belief. You have to have belief before you can know things. Before I can say I know that P, I have to be able to say I believe that P.
Okay, I got it backwards. You're right.
Yeah, so in most theories of knowledge, like justified true belief. Now there are other ones out there. But
you just keep saying, as long as you have a belief in something, you have to have the knowledge, or vice versa. You have to have the knowledge, you have to have the belief.
No, you're equivocating. That's the fallacy of equivocation. Now
I mean,
listen, Larry, what you're doing is you're equivocating knowledge with information. They're not the same thing.
That's what I'm saying you were doing.
No, but I'm not. I assure you. Trust me. Do you know what the conditions are for knowledge? What is it for somebody to be justified to say that I know that this is the case? What is the conditions canonically?
Go ahead and tell me.
Well, hang on. Canonically for justified true belief. Do you know what they are?
No.
Then why would you think that I'm conflating them when I can tell you what they are? Knowledge requires three things to justify true belief. The proposition has to be true. The subject has to believe the proposition, and the subject has to be justified to believe the proposition. Now, there's other theories out there. There's JTP+.
Okay, well, maybe I have a problem with the last one. How do you know you're justified? You may believe you're justified when you aren't.
Well, correct. I subscribe. By the way, I subscribe to fallibilism. Fallibilism is the position that you might not be justified for your positions. You could be wrong justificatorically, right? So if I say 1 + 1 = 2, even though that's a metaphysical necessity, cannot be wrong. I could be, in theory, wrong about the reasons, the justifications why 1 + 1 = 2. That's fallibilism. But my point to you is, and this is when you say I believe P. Do you think there's a difference between saying that it, like for example, snow is white, or it is true that snow is white? Do you think there's a difference in those two statements?
Well, one's an opinion, and the other one is stating that it's always right.
What if I told you that in deflationary theory those mean the exact same thing? There's no difference.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Okay, so
I don't know inflationary theory.
Deflationary theory. Basically, it has no value to say it is true that snow is white. When you say snow is white, you're making an ontological claim. This is why you're stating this as you believe it's a fact, right? When I say snow is white, I am stating it. I believe that it is a fact. If I say that I believe in God, I'm stating it. I believe that is a fact. A fact is something that corresponds with reality, right? There's some kind of truth maker or truth condition.
No, okay, right then. A belief does not necessarily have to comport with reality.
Right, you can have false
beliefs.
Believe it. Right, you can have false beliefs. Sure.
Yeah.
But what makes a belief? What makes a belief true, though? Right? If I say I believe snow is white, what is the condition? What is the truth
I think
maker?
that you can verify it with other through experimentation and other people.
Well, not everything's not everything can be done by experiment, right? I mean, if I say, look. If I say that like a level 2 multiverse exists, right? I may not be able to experiment with that, but what makes it true is if multi-level 2 universe exists. Snow is white by the fact.
Are you getting there? Yeah, I could say unicorns exist, but they're you can't experiment for it because it's on the third universe over. However, the time to believe is when we have evidence.
Well, not necessarily. No, not necessarily. That's bad epistemology.
You're saying we should believe before we have evidence?
There's not all justifications are evidential. There's also other ways to justify a belief, like pragmatism or prudentialism. This is what I'm saying. When you're stuck in this mindset,
sure, but those evidence is logical as well.
You can have logical arguments, sure.
Yes.
But so do you know what makes something true, though? I mean, like I said, though, if I say, like for example, dogs exist. What is the truth maker that makes that the case?
Well, we agree on the definition of the word dog, and we communicate and search and find the dog, and we
okay, you find a dog, right? Okay, perfect. Yeah, there's some instantiation of a dog. So when I say, look, what makes this proposition true is the fact that there's a dog here, right? That is the truth maker, right? So when we say something is a fact, we're saying there's a truth maker to be had that is the case that the proposition is true. That's all. So wait
a minute. You're bringing deism into
I've not mentioned deism at once.
I don't know. You skirt it. You say just because there's a dog, there has to be a dog maker. And right
no,
there,
truth
you jump
maker.
from,
a truth maker is a condition that makes a proposition
you just
true.
said dog maker.
I said truth maker.
Okay.
A dog
so
is
you're
the truth maker.
Creationism.
So
all right.
a truth
Okay,
maker.
the dog is the truth maker.
Yeah, the
okay.
dog. The fact that I have an instantiation that I can point to a dog and say this is the truth maker that makes a truth bearer to the proposition. The other way would be a truth conditional, right? And a truth conditional is something that isn't an instantiation, but something that still could be observed. I use the thing like I'll just pick somebody from the live chat, Rez. If I say Rez is taller than Steve, what makes that proposition true is that there's a truth condition that I'm shorter than he is, right? There's nothing to be instantiated. There's not a physical being like a dog that instantiates as a truth bearer, but it's a conditional. What makes the statement Rez is taller than Steve is that there's a state of affairs, a condition that exists. Steve's shorter than him, right? Or measurably. That makes that proposition true.
Okay. Yeah, where are we going with this?
Well, I mean, because you say believers in God, agnostic theists, believers in God, but does not claim to know this as fact. That's what they do when you say I believe God exists. You're stating it. That isn't stated as a fact. You're stating this as
agnostic believers. I have had agnostic believers, Christians, come to me and say, I'm a Christian. I believe in God, but I do not claim to know that God exists.
I didn't say again.
Now,
wait. Hang on, Larry. You just used the word knowledge. Did you hear me use anything relating to knowledge? No. And the reason being is you keep moving from ontology to epistemology. You keep moving from belief to knowledge. And you do this shift. And that's why it's confusing. Don't use the word knowledge, right?
I think
Stick
maybe
with
we're
beliefs.
just talking past each other. I thank you for your time. It's been almost an hour and I need to go.
Okay.
But
I
I appreciate you contacting me and wanting to do a conversation on that page.
Yeah.
I have written 75 other pages, and they're included in a book. Maybe I can mention the book.
Yeah, go ahead, by all means.
It's called Atheism, What's It All About? It includes 52 chapters from my blog, including the one we're discussing, if you want to cherry pick that one from your audience. And I'm also a radio host, a TV host. I have been a TV host and an executive producer for the Atheist TV show we have here in Knoxville, as well as a blogger, et cetera, et cetera. I've been active in atheism for over 20 years, and I've been an atheist for 50. But thank you very much for contacting me. I appreciate your honesty and your.
I probably will write a blog when I fix my website. I have a www.greatdebatemedium.com, and I'll probably write on this, and then you can read it later on and maybe just ponder on some of the things that I've said, because the reason why I do this, and I'll let you go in a second, is just that when you have blogs like this, it makes it much more difficult to people learning these topics, and I have to then go explain to these atheists how it is in academia. So if they go take these courses, they're not understanding the concepts when they read things like this or epistemologically.
And you can imagine how hard it is for me, who's an atheist, who have to explain all of this stuff that I know or believe to people who have never been out of school at all. I mean, you're going to have to teach every single atheist out there.
I have taught,
and
I've done hundreds,
epidemiology,
if not thousands, even
epistemology.
Yeah,
and it's an education system, but we have to bring them up to a certain level.
Yeah, I agree.
Just to have a conversation.
That works for me. All right, Larry, I appreciate your time.
All right.
Thanks, guys, for watching this. Like I said, I will get a hold of my my webmaster, because, like I said, the certification for my webpage expired yesterday. So if you happen to go to www.greatdebatecommunity.com, it's going to come with an error. It's still safe, though. Okay.
All right.
All right. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Well, that was actually quite fun, guys. Obviously, the things I need to point out to people is that when you have different terminology, see the problem with having this huge disconnect. When you write a blog about epistemology and you don't understand epistemology, or you write a blog about philosophy and you don't understand basic philosophy, because again, I'm not trying to portray myself as an expert, there's a problem, because now it confuses a bunch of people. These terms, I mean, the blog is in the video description. Very weird, atypical usages. I mean, for somebody to say that a hard theist is somebody who can prove God does not exist, a hard atheist is somebody who can prove God does not exist, is weird to me, right? Because I know a lot of people that say, look, I'm a hard atheist. I believe there are no gods. And by the way, that's just atheist, but I can't prove it. That's a hell of a lot different claim, right? And you only have a burden to prove God does not exist or there's no gods if that's your claim, right? Because if not, you straw man them. And this is what I see atheists do to theists too. Hey, you believe God doesn't exist? Or excuse me, you believe God exists? Prove it. Well, that's not the theist claim unless they say, I can prove God exists. Then you can say, okay, let's look at your proof, right? And if they don't have any, then you're like, okay, well, that's fine. I don't believe you. That's whatever. But for him to use these terms and basically, I think, make it more difficult for atheists. Because now an atheist says, look, I can't hold to an hard atheist position because he's saying in order to be a hard atheist, I have to be able to prove there's no God. That's what a theist has been telling atheists for years. A lot of atheists used to tell this. They used to run the argument back in the day with Shock of God and those guys. Hey, look, atheism is you can't be an atheist unless you can demonstrate and prove there are no gods. BS, right? So he's actually running the same arguments that theists used to use, right? So, but anyways, it's nice of him to come in and talk. It's a fun hour. I just wish that I was able to, get through to him a little bit more. I don't think he was understanding, but my point is, why would you write a blog like this and use these terms so atypically that's just going to confuse people? Because that gets to the private language argument. When you have a language of one, you're not communicating with anybody, right? I mean, if I made a language up all to myself and nobody knew this language, how would I ever communicate with anybody? And if you want to look into that, look in Wittgenstein's Beetle in a Box. It's called a private language argument, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Because it doesn't do anybody any good if you don't at least recognize, okay, these are how these terms at least used normatively in the domain of discourse in philosophy or epistemology. I just think that people should at least know what how they're generally used. Now, again, you don't have to be an expert. I want to get people up to the layperson level, like me. I'm a layperson. That's all I've ever tried to do, right? But when I write my blog, I try to make sure that it's at least, interesting and people think and they go, oh, look, I never thought of that before, right? And the only way I can do that is if I actually can read papers and go, okay, what am I gleaning from this paper by reading it? And the only way to do that is know how they use these words in those papers, right? So anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. I think Cheshire is doing something later on today. I think she's got a Minecraft thing going on. If you guys have any questions, ask now. CP Dad says, how do atheists need to prove? If you invent a phone, it's your job to show it or at least prove it. It's not the job of the buyer. Well, no, the proof. This is the problem with the word proof. I understand when Aaron uses proof, and he explains it in his video like he means it just mean that it has to demonstrate. I understand that. But most of the time when people use the word proof, they don't know what they mean by it. A proof is something that is logically deductive and sound. And if I can say, look, I can prove that the square root of 2 is irrational, I can do that mathematically. I can say I can prove that 1.99 repeating equals 1. I can prove that mathematically, right? But when an atheist says there are no gods, they don't have to prove anything, right? They don't even have to demonstrate it. Even if you use the word proof to demonstrate, they don't have to demonstrate anything. That's not part of what they're saying. They're not saying, look, I can demonstrate there's no gods. That's a different claim entirely. So I think that by using terminology that he does, he's making it so much more difficult for atheists because now atheists go, wait a minute, I can't claim there's no gods because now I got to prove it or demonstrate it? No. Of course you can believe there's no gods. You don't have to demonstrate it to be rational. You just have to be able to rationalize it by justification. Give reasons for it. Because they're so used to saying to theists, and again, this is the whole, new atheist type stuff. They're so used to saying to a theist, oh, well, you've got to demonstrate to me there's a God. No, they don't. They only have to do that so they say they can demonstrate it. What do you think of local and global atheists? As long as somebody understands the difference, right? I mean, I think people can say, look, I'm a local atheist toward this God, but I'm not a global atheist, right? I'm not an atheist that says there's no gods whatsoever, right? Now, granted, if they don't do that, then, I would put them under somebody who's not an atheist under the philosophical usages, but it doesn't matter. At that point, it's a semantic label. But a local atheist is somebody who says, look, I'm an atheist, meaning that I believe that Zeus doesn't exist. But I'm not a global atheist to say that the universe has no gods. Right? Arnie says, for 100 and okay, knock. He says, good form, Steve. Be safe. Thank you. And by the way, I hope that I applied the 5 C's as much as possible. I asked for clarity. I asked for context. I gave principle of charity. Right? I didn't think that in any way he was being deceptive or lying or anything like that. I came bearing cookies. I mean, I'm friendly. But I did want to evaluate his blog, which I thought was kind of weird because I'm like, look, I'm going to spend an hour talking about your blog. He's like, do you want to spend an hour talking about this blog? I'm like, Yeah, that's what I said I was going to do, right? Because there's a lot of problems with this particular blog. But yeah, and he seemed a nice guy. I mean, I've talked to him on Facebook before, so nothing problematic there. So what do you guys think before I wrap this up? Do you guys have any last words on this? Because I do want to keep it, short. But I didn't forget cookies. I brought cookies, So let me give you about 30 seconds here to kind of catch up on the delay, and leave a comment in the video description what you think too. Read his blog and then, give me feedback on it. It's just, I think this is a very strange, private language argument here. And I really wouldn't write the way he's writing on any of this, because I think it really does confuse an atheist. And by the way, when I told him what agnostic was, he didn't seem to, latch onto that. Like I thought he was going to. I was like, because he asked me, like, what is it in philosophy? Well, an agnostic has nothing to do with knowledge. This is what I'm saying. The atheist experience has corrupted people on this. Notice how many times he switched between belief and knowledge. It's like, no, Gnostic is not about knowledge. Stop it. It's not. It is somebody who believes that they can't, evaluate the proposition, so they suspend judgment on it, and they don't have a belief position either way. That's all. Kimomaki says, was the bird chirping in the background a dig it here style? Helios says, the confusion was that he thought you meant the entire blog when you really meant specific articles in the blog. Oh, that might be true, but no, that's not true, because I sent him the link. I was like, this is the link that I want to talk about. This one blog that you have, this one page, I sent him this, and I go, this is what I'm going to be talking about. You use your 5 C's well. Thank you. I hope so. I tried. I'll have to rewatch this because spaghetti distracted me. Okay, Tom. Well, you know what? I'd rather have spaghetti than watch this myself, so I don't blame you for that. Hussein says, quick update on non-sec. Nothing's changed. There's no update to be had. As soon as the courts do their thing, which could be who the hell knows, I'll let you guys know. Okay. Let's see here. But anyways, I'm going to wrap this up. Like I said, I appreciate you guys doing this, like watching this so early in the morning. At least for me, you guys might be actually having a normal time. But anyways, stay safe, stay home, don't go out. My county here, Riverside County, just ordered that if you go out, you must wear a mask now. So they're not playing around. Riverside County had 2 sheriffs that were actually killed by this virus. So they're not playing. So you go out where I live. You have to have a mask. So stay safe. Don't go outside unless you really need to, guys. It's just we'll keep you guys entertained. Cheshire's got something coming up here with Minecraft. Go watch her. She'll keep you entertained. Helio says, you also did bring cookies, but your cookies were peanut butter, not chocolate chip. I would have started with what you liked and agreed about to butter him up and then go into the critique. And you're right in some regard. It was kind of difficult because I felt like I was being interrupted a lot. Right. And I think that, he's going down these paths that I see happen a lot with this type of new atheist, is that they don't let you explain to them because they cut you off 5 seconds into what you're telling them. And then they run with something that's completely irrelevant to where you were going. I just see it happen quite frequently. So, all right. Leave a comment, like, and share. And I appreciate the people that have been Patreon. I appreciate the people that are members, Arnie and Jens and everybody else that decided to join. Right now, it's tough. I'm going to be putting out a lot of stuff. I'm trying to get, I was saving some of the stuff for the Non Sequitur show, but this right here, like this, was good for this channel. But I am trying to stream a lot more than I was before because, hey, I can't go anywhere. Neither can anybody else, basically. So I really do hope people, stay Patreon. They become members because I am going to try to keep people entertained and talk about a lot of different things. This just happens to be one of them. This is my thing for like a few weeks that I get onto. But now you guys know why, because blogs like this make it so much more difficult to explain these topics. They're just... Because nowhere in here does it say, look, these are just how I think these terms should be used. They state these things as if this is the way it is. They state these things as like facts. And nothing in here is factual. Matter of fact, it's all wrong for the most part if you compare it to what you would actually use in philosophy. So see what you guys think. Go visit the blog and leave me some comments. Okay, guys? And with that, I'll hit you guys up later. Maybe I'll play some Minecraft later. Okay? And good night.